Hey guys, welcome back to the Captain's Corner Pod. I am your co-host and I guess first mate, Ray Russell, and I'm here we're going to talk more with the captain himself, Nick Masci, and in order to do so, we got to bring him back onto the show, so we got to ask that ever important question. What's happening, Captain?
Well, Ray, we are back for episode 3, and each episode has gotten bigger than the previous one, and today is no different. A lot of big stuff coming on. We're going to talk about all of the signings we have coming up in the fall, but the Portland Wrestling Expo has been on the tongue of all the wrestling fans, not only in the Portland area, but the entire Pacific Northwest. And we're going to bring on someone in a bit that is very familiar to all the fans in the Pacific Northwest, a Pacific Northwest legend, a Portland territory wrestling legend. We're going to get to him shortly, but things are going great, Ray. This humidity's killer, but we got to do the best we can with what we have, right?
Yeah, tell me about it. You know, it's not supposed to get this hot in Ohio, but I'll take it. 4 days straight. I mean, it's got to end sooner or later, right?
Only one place to go from here.
I love it. Well, Nick, you know, you were talking a little bit about this fellow who is going to be joining us here. I figure, hey, he's already here. I see him in the lobby. He's ready to go. Why make him wait? A true superstar. I'll let you introduce the legend we have this week for the program.
Well, we worked with a lot of legends over the last 10 years, and this is someone that I've been fortunate to work with on a handful of occasions. A great performer, a great wrestler, but a good person and a great person outside the ring. My man, Fidel Sierra, the Cuban assassin. Cuban, how's it going, brother?
I'm doing great, brother. I'm telling you, hey, I'm ready to rock and roll. I'm ready for everything. But it's great to be on here. My career has been going crazy. I love it. Over 40 years in the wrestling business, and I got a match in the UK coming up for WAW, the Knights, and I can't wait for that. It's September 19th, and I got so much stuff going on, you know. It's just really, I'm blessed.
Well, Dave, we're going to have to talk about the match coming up in September overseas, but I know you just came back from Nevada. Big weekend at the CAC. Why don't you tell everyone about what happened over in Las Vegas?
What a great CAC. It was the 58th annual CAC convention and Cauliflower Alley Club. And I was lucky enough to induct for the referees award, Bill Alfonso Fonzie. And I got to induct him because me and Fonzie at the age of 12, and me 14, we were friends, and we'd go to wrestling every week at Fort Horn Hesley Armory. Then we'd go to on Wednesday to 106 North Albany, where all the great TV tapings were. Everybody, there was somebody came to wrestle. It was great to get to induct him, to see Sting inducted, to see Buff Backwell inducted, to see the Dudley's boys inducted, to see so many people, you know, and it's such a great. The CAC is so good, because they give back so much and help out so many wrestlers.
Oh, they sure do. To anyone that's listening and hasn't been to the CAC yet, whether you're, a wrestler, whether, you're one of the boys, whether you're a fan, you owe it to yourself. Take that trip. There's plenty of reasons to go to Vegas, but the CAC is right up there with all of them when it comes to the wrestling experience. What was the best meal you had out there, Dave? I'm a foodie, so I got to know.
The best meal?
Yeah.
Oh, man, I had so many meals besides at the CAC itself that, we were crazy. We were so full of a Chinese place that we eat at this other hotel that we stay at. At the banquet itself, they had this great, the first night they had like ravioli or, macaroni and stuff, and it was so good. Then the second night they had this chicken breast with broccoli and potato, and it was really good too. And, the deal about the CAC is all the people, like I said, that I got to see that I hadn't seen in years. Even Lex Luger was there because he inducted Sting.
Yeah, it was an absolute stacked lineup at the CAC. And the CAC it's a big family reunion. Was there anyone you saw, Dave, that you hadn't seen maybe in a few years? Or
you know what? That's what made me start going there. Is for years the late Red Bastien would try to get me to go. And then I would always say, I'm going to go, and I never went. Then the first time I went by myself, it was Nick Buckwinkle was still the president. And I seen Harley Race. I seen Nick Buckwinkle. I seen so many people there, and some bunch of them now are gone. And I said, wow, I looked around and I said, I would have never seen all these people if I hadn't come to CAC. And it was great. You know, Brian Blair, president, and they got all the board of directors, everybody involved in CAC. They don't get paid for this. They put on the best deal. It is so good, and you feel great. And I just can't tell you how honored I am when I go every year and get to see. You know, I've gotten to induct Ricky Santana. Ricky Santana inducted me. Lenny was inducted, the grappler, years ago too. So it's like, and then now it keeps getting bigger and bigger. I even suggested a few people to Brian Blair, and he said, Dave, you wouldn't believe the list of people waiting to be inducted that are even bigger than this last CAC.
Wow.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing stuff to be able to go out there to the CAC. I haven't been in quite a while. I love Vegas on top of that, so it's a double down for me. My wife's not the biggest wrestling fan, but she loves Vegas, so it doesn't take much to get her to go out there either. That just sounds like a blast this year. I'm really sad that we missed it. Would have loved to have been there. I look over at all the names, you know, that you have been in the ring with, Dave, over the times, but you mentioned growing up and going to the matches, going to the Armory, going to the Sportatorium. And so I have to ask you, instead of asking you about your career to start with, I got to ask you, what was one of the very first hot angles you remember watching? What really drew you into the business?
Wow. There were so many of them. I can tell you, I seen Eddie Graham get the great Malenko's false teeth, yank him out on the TV and smash him in the middle of the ring. And then they fought all the way out to Howard Avenue. And that was what a major angle back then that I've seen. And I got to see great matches with Jack Briscoe, great angles. I seen the angle where we did it later on in Oregon and stuff. But Paul Jones took Jack Briscoe's Florida heavyweight title and threw it off the Gandy Bridge. And there was thousands of people on the Gandy Bridge. Had to close it down because they didn't expect so many fans to show off. And when he threw that belt off, there was heat galore.
Nobody dove in for it?
Nobody dove in for it, but man, there was a lot of it really, because Jack Briscoe, to me, that when you talk about the Briscoes, Jack and Jerry, they're so good. And Jack Briscoe, to me, was one of the best NWA world champions. I mean, there's so many, Hardy Race was a great, but Jack Briscoe had that my special that I loved the way he wrestled. He had you hooked, he sold so good. He did everything he did in the ring meant something. It's not like nowadays, and I don't mean it bad. I'm not trying to know. Nowadays, there's a lot of flip-flopping and no storytelling in the ring. And the storytelling back then was like, wow. It made you really believe, hey, this. I'll tell you what, when I seen Eddie Graham wrestling the great Malenko, I said, I don't care about all the other matches might be fixed. This match is not fixed. That's how convincing they were.
Now, Dave, I know that, of course, the Iron Club movie came out at the end of last year. So there's been kind of a resurgence in Texas wrestling. What are your memories of that Texas style wrestling?
Yeah, and that was my first territory I went to in 1978 was Dallas. So I got to work with all the Von Erichs. I got to work with Gino Hernandez. I got to work with so many guys. And Fritz, I remember wrestling Fritz and Gary Hart. It was Killer Carcroft versus me, and he was beating the hell out of me. And here comes Fritz for the save. I was all juiced up because he had the claw on me, wouldn't let go, Krupp. And Fritz came in, and brother, he put the claw on Killer Krupp. He put the claw on me just to, to make it more wilder. And then he signaled for Gary Hart to come in the ring. And I was like, okay, who's he going to claw? He's only got two hands. But, he gave him a big boot when Gary Hart came running in. But those were great memories back then because, like I said, I got, I had the luck of, being there in 1978 and got sent there by Ada Maivia, Rocky Johnson, and the late King Curtis. And that's who sent me in 1978 to Dallas for my first territory. And then the rest was history. I was like, there for a few months. Then I got to go to Mid-Atlantic. They asked me, you want to go to Mid-Atlantic? You're going to be first to fourth match, but you're going to make anywhere from $800 to $1,500 a week. I said, yes, sign me up.
Yeah, I really enjoyed your stuff down there in Mid-Atlantic. You worked as David Patterson there in the early 80s, I remember.
Yes. And I'll tell you a story. Joe Blanchard was so pissed off. Joe Blanchard said, you know Spanish? And I said, yeah. He goes, why would Gary Hart name you David Patterson? I said, my first territory, that's what they called me, David Patterson. But I said, what I didn't ever get, though, is I told Joe Blanchard, I said, just because my name is Patterson don't mean I can't speak Spanish. Could mean my father's last name was Patterson, and, my mother was Spanish, and that's how I know Spanish. But
you were getting too deep in semantics for Joe, maybe.
Maybe, yes. Yeah.
So I was looking over the names you were working early in your career. They were early in their career, too. Talk about a breeding ground over on the West Coast. I mean, you were in there, and these guys were in their infancy in the ring as well, like Chris Adams, Tommy Rogers, Tom Pritchard, Kurt Hennig, Billy Jack Haynes, I'll throw in there as well. You got to team with the Dynamite Kid. You worked against Andre the Giant. And after all of that, I came to the name Buzz Sawyer. I saw you worked Buzz quite a few times here, at least in the early 80s. And I was curious, your memories of working with Buzz Sawyer.
Teaming up with him or wrestling?
Wrestling, well, just memories of Buzz in general, maybe even outside of the ring.
Okay, I remember in Mid-Atlantic, it was me and Tenru from Japan, and we wrestled the late Buzz Sawyer and the late Matt Bourne. And they would try to if it not take advantage, they would just start beating the hell out of people. They tried to do that with me, and I fall back a little bit. Tenru said, tag me, and I tagged Tenru, and he lit into them. And then the match became a lot easier. But, me and Matt Bourne, we shared the same birthday, July 27th. I spent a lot of time with Matt and Buzz in Japan and Brett Sawyer. And I know they have a bad reputation but we had good times in Japan, and then I, like you said, wrestling Andre the Giant in Japan for New Japan Pro Wrestling. Against Sakaguchi and Inoki. Me and Andre against them. And talk about Andre just would say, boss, tag me in. And I would tag him in. And he would, he'd make sure everything got back to normal. I was lucky because Andre liked me. And one thing about Andre the Giant, everybody knows if he liked you, it was a good thing. If he didn't like you, I felt sorry for you. And I was like, he liked me. He invited me. He had sponsors in Japan, and they would take him out to different good restaurants. And he would always bring me and Mass Superstar Bill Eadie, Dick Murdoch. And we'd had great times there. They got me drunk as hell one time. Andre had a machine at the Keel Plaza called the Black Machine. He was wearing it at one time. He was going as that under a hood there. And I said, I love rum, right? Well, the cut glass was one of those tall glasses. And what it was vodka, except for about 2 inches. And then they put a little bit of Coke. I drank the first one. It was kind of rough, but then it was like, okay, that wasn't bad. So I had the second one. Andre's looking at me, and I could tell. And Bill Eadie's looking at me and Dick Murdoch. And then I had the third one. And I was almost under the third one, and I had to run out of the bar we were at the Keel Plaza. And the vomit just went flying like 6 feet away into the wall. And then they got the luggage cart, took me to my room, put me by the toilet to throw up all night. And I still remember Dick Murdoch knocking on the door about 8 or 9 in the morning, and we went to some sauna place. And I was like, Dickie, I can't. I'm going to die if I go there. No, here, Bubba, drink some water, Bubba. And that's what I did. I drank water and went to that sauna. And believe it or not, after sweating it all out, I was ready to go for the next day. Not for no more. I never fell for those rum and Coke like that anymore, but I drank a lot of beer.
Leave it up to Uncle Dirk Murdoch to give you the little tip on how to get past that hangover, right? Now, Dave, you spent a lot of time in Japan, not only for New Japan, but also for WAR, Tender's promotion. What is it about? Because there's a lot of people that, couldn't handle one tour in Japan. You went over there multiple times. What was it about the Japanese style that you really took to, that you really enjoyed?
Well, it was very solid, I'll tell you that. And I told it Mike Von Erich this, God bless. It was me, Black Bart, and Mike Von Erich against 3 Japanese guys, and they were laying it. I mean, we kept screaming at Mike, fight back, tag us. Then they tag us, and we tore into them. And then we told Mike, you cannot. You got started fighting back good. I said, we got to the dressing room. I said, if you let these guys beat you up, that's the way it was back in Japan today. If you let them eat you up on that first night, then if you're there 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 5 weeks, every match they pass it along. He's soft. He ain't going to fight back. He's scared, whatever. But getting back to war for Tenru, before that, I'm the only guy that got heat for a double booking, double visa, they called it. I worked for IWA for Victor Quinones Wings, and I left, came home, and flew right back 3 days or 4 days later to work for Tenru. And I remember Hattori said, you have a lot of heat. And I said, what do you mean? He said, you could have just said this, and then they only had to pay one. They could have together paid for one visa. This way they had to pay 2 visas, double booking. So that's where they would, man, I had heat, Hattori, and I could tell I had a little bit of heat with Tenru because we knew each other for a long time. And Victor Quinones didn't smarten me up to this. So it wasn't all my fault because I didn't know about the double booking, double visa, all this. Yeah, I knew about it was booked for 2 different companies, but it turned out that way. But I got over it. I had great matches with Tenru and I had great matches with Chris Jericho, a few other good people. And I always enjoyed wrestling in Japan, even though it was a whole different. The fans there were you wouldn't know because you could do whatever, and they would just sit there looking at you. I don't know how it is now because I haven't been there in so many years. But then when you did something that they really liked, they'd all clap, and then they'd stop. But you were still having a good match, but that's just the way the fans were
right.
Programmed, or that's just the way they were.
Dave, I got to ask you, many times over, your tag team partner in life here in the professional wrestling world was Ricky Santana. You talked about inducting him prior. So a lot of people will probably remember your team with him in WCW because that was aired nationally. But I believe you started teaming with Ricky as early as 86, 87, something like that over on the West Coast over Pacific Northwest. Two-part question.
No, we teamed up in Florida as a Cuban Connection. And then later on, when WCW, we were Especialitas, then became the Barrio Brothers.
Right, they unmasked you, and the Barrio Brothers were born out of the...
Yeah, they unmasked me, Nasty Boys. They wrestled the Nasty Boys at Daytona Beach.
Yeah, Florida. I remember. It's a pre-show to a pay-per-view. Yeah.
Yeah, and then we became the Barrio Brothers.
So
we were supposed to get these big pushes, but something went wrong.
Do you remember who initially booked you guys together as a tag team back in the 80s? And also, I was just curious, after that first run or during that first run, did you feel a connection with Ricky? Like, hey, man, we got something here.
Well, see, me and Ricky go all the way to Puerto Rico, and me and Ricky have been best friends for it's like Fonzie. It's like for over 40 years. And so I'm trying to think the first time in Florida Championship Wrestling, if it was Eddie Graham was booking or it was still his territory with Mike Graham. But I believe the first booker that put us together was Kevin Sullivan, God bless. And he put us together as a Cuban Connection. And it was a great run as a Cuban Connection. I loved it. We even, and then in Puerto Rico, we teamed up a bunch. And we had our manager, Fantasy. And she would hit people with a brick in a purse. And we had a ton of heat there.
Dave, you had such a great career, man. You worked nearly every territory. International, so many different companies. we had the mention of the Portland territory. Of course, you spent a lot of time in the Portland territory. Coming up February 22nd, I'm sure you've heard about the Portland Wrestling Expo. Why don't you tell us maybe your time in the Portland territory? I know there was one big character, one big masked man that was really heating up Portland, 1988, 1989. Could you talk about that man?
Okay. My first time to Portland, I went as the Destroyer. Left as the Destroyer. And even at that time, I told Don Owens, hey, man, there's Dick Byers. I don't care, Don Owens would say. Then I came back as the Assassin. So I came back as the Assassin, had a good run. It was when I turned babyface as the Assassin, lost the loser, leave town to Playboy Buddy Rose, but had so many great matches there. Rip the Crippler Oliver teamed up with Dynamite Kid, us three. We were the tag champions, the Northwest champions. All that is when I was the Assassin. And when I was the Destroyer, I was part of Buddy Rose's army. And with Rip Oliver. But then when Buddy Rose had gone to New York, then Rip Oliver developed the Clan, and I was Rip's main boy. So he became the Clan. And we had Dynamite, me, and Rip, and man, we had the place on fire. I mean, Kurt Hennig was there, all these top guys, and that's where I had my first sellout with Kurt Hennig. Before that, I had sellouts with Jay Youngblood as a Destroyer. But with Kurt, as simple as this is how easy it was back there. I hit Kurt Hennig with a pair of brass knuckles. He came up to the crow's nest where I was doing a promo. Dutch Savage gave him a coal miner's glove, and he said, you got a coal miner's glove match right here next Saturday night here in Portland. And all I said, this is how, because it was so much, the business was so serious back then. It was so like, all I said was, Kurt Hennig, you got me back against the crow's nest, but against the wall. I got no choice but next Saturday but to end your wrestling career. I got more heat for that because it sold out, turned away like 2,000 people. And Don Owens came in, and I said, Don, it's a sellout. Yeah, he goes, for Christ's sakes, you realize we turned 2,000 people away? Sure. Don said, you dumb son of a bitch. Now, you dumb son of a bitches. He goes, now those 2,000 people. I said, no, next time they'll come back and get their tickets earlier, Don. And I said this before. I remember my payday for that one match was $900, $875 and $25 because I was bleeding. And Kurt Hennig got it the same amount. And we said, wow, we just made $900 each for one match. And this was in the 80s. But now we keep going now. Now I lose a loser, leave town as the Assassin to Playboy Buddy Rose. But now I'm gone for 5 weeks in Japan. I got a 5-week tour. And Don Owens says, well, when are you going to come back next? And I said, I'm going to tell you here in a minute. So I'm over there, and then I'm looking, and I hear, and I'm watching. And then this is what happened, brother. I became Top Gun.
Yeah, I love
Top Gun was selling out everywhere. Glenn Denton was a booker, and they all ribbed me. Everybody would say, bro, you got enough belts? I had every title there, and would come to you. Dunked our dog did this somewhere, came to the ring with the wheelbarrow with all the belts, even the tag belts without a tag champion.
That's funny. And there's a reason that Top Gun was selling out the Pacific Northwest. He's going to be selling out the Pacific Northwest one more time, as I like to officially announce that Top Gun is returning to the Pacific Northwest area on Saturday, February 22nd. He is our newest announced guest for the Portland Wrestling Expo at the Holiday Inn Portland Airport. Top Gun will be joining the Grappler, Sheep Herder Luke Williams, and a dozen plus other international stars celebrating the Portland territory, Don Owen, his family, and pro wrestling in general. So Top Gun, I'm very excited that you'll be the PWE on February 22nd.
You know what? Can I say it the way Top Gun used to say it? Everybody say you copy Dusty Rhodes.
Yeah,
let me tell you something, baby. On February 22nd, it's all coming down at the Expo right there in Portland, Oregon, with the return of the legendary Top Gun for the first time in over 20 years.
Well, Nick, if I didn't have enough reasons to come already, this one did it. This put it over the top for me.
You got to be there, Ray. February 22nd. Tickets go on sale next month. I know a guy that can help you out, though.
Well, that's pretty damn cool. You got to turn me on to him, Nick. But I got to tell you, I got to go back for my memories of Top Gun. Growing up in Ohio, I didn't get to see Top Gun proper, right? But once tape trading started, and I was pretty young at it. I was in my early teens when I was already tape trading. And in the mid-'90s, I got a hold of some Portland tapes from the Top Gun era of Portland. And at the time, still a mark, I didn't realize who was under that mask. And I said, who is this? This is so cool. I love this gimmick. And so it's crazy. And that's going to lead me to one final question for you, Dave, if you have the time.
Yes, sir.
After your run as Top Gun in Portland, we don't see Top Gun anymore for several years. And then one night, I pop it on WCW television, and Cuba's Top Gun is in the ring getting ready to take on Conan. And I said, you've got to be shitting me.
What happened there was I was wrestling as a terrorist, and then all this stuff happened. And they said, and I had the Top Gun mask, they said, Ted Turner and them, you cannot use the name terrorist anymore because of all this stuff that's going on with terrorists and stuff like that. You know, at first I was like, yeah, but I'm just a character, you know, but they, you know, and then later on I understood it more. So then I said, well, how about I become Cuba's Top Gun? You know, I got a Top Gun mask here and I can call it Cuba's Top Gun. And that's how I got that. And that's how I did that. I came up with that right off the fly because it was either that or I was going to have to wrestle with this ugly mug, and it wasn't ready yet for that.
So basically the Top Gun mask always traveled with you wherever you went.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, I lost a suitcase that really makes me mad because when I was the assassin, I had this mask with Olympic rings on it. And I lost that suitcase, and it had like my original destroyer mask, and then this assassin mask with the rings. Then I had another assassin mask, which was like Jody Hamilton's. But there was another, and I told Jody, I said, Jody, because I said, I'm so sorry. Don Owens told me I'm going to be the assassin. And that's what I had to be, you know, because whatever Don wanted, was his territory. And Jody said, don't worry about it, kid. Just go make some money. Because Jody Hamilton, God, he treated me so good, too. In Florida, we traveled up and down the road here, and a lot of respect.
One more question just popped into my head, Dave, and then thank you so much for your time. And we're going to have you on again as it gets closer. The Portland Wrestling Expo on February 22nd. Top Gun will be there, the Grappler, Sheep Herd, Luke Williams, a bunch of other names. But something that people don't talk about, and you had such a distinguished career, you're an ECW original. You wrestled for ECW on and off for a lot of their Florida stops, 95, 96, 97, 98. Why don't you talk about that and, how you wound up getting hooked up with Paulie and his Extreme Crew?
Okay, I'll tell you what happened there was Fonzie was there, and I'm going to tell you, this is how crazy our business is. You know, it's the same thing. First, let me tell you this little story. WCW, I'm feuding with Hacksaw Jim Duggan. I take the flag and blah, blah, blah. And we got a 3.4 or 3-point-something rating. Nitro came on Monday, and Hogan and them only got a 4.2. Or anyway, it was too close that they told Jimmy Hart was in charge of Saturday night. And they told Jimmy Hart in that angle right now. And we couldn't believe it. We're like, okay, so just because, this is a business, But now let me get back to what you were just saying about the ECW. So we're ECW. I got Fantasy as my manager. At that point, they didn't care if we got on the mic. We got on the mic, and they would be screaming, she's a crack whore, ta, 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 all that crazy stuff. We had so much heat, we had never been on their TV. It was just natural heat because I knew me from being the Fidel Sierra, the Cuban Assassin, and then Fantasy from working all around Florida with me. We got to do that maybe 3 times, get on the mic before the match. Because, it's kind of hard with it. I'm not on their TV. And after about the 3rd time, Paulie said, same it's almost like the same thing with Duggan. Paul Lee said, we can't have you getting on the mic no more. And then I questioned it, and it was because they were chanting more for us, booing us and we weren't on their TV. And I was like, well, why don't you put me on your TV?
Yeah, right.
But you know how this business is. It was very political, But I still appreciate my 40-something years in it, and still, I got a match coming up in the UK. I'm going to the UK. I fly there on a Thursday, get there on a Friday, but I wrestle on a Saturday night, defend the Cuban heavyweight title, which I'm going to bring with me to Portland. So fans want to take a picture or whatever. I'm defending the Cuban heavyweight title, and I'm working for the Knights, WAW, Saraya or Pages. She went for witness Page, and now she's Saraya in AEW for her mom and dad. And I think her Saraya and her mom her mom are teaming up in a tag match, and I'm defending the Cuban heavyweight title against somebody. They haven't. I did a promo for it, like I was on the way to the offices there, and they haven't told me who I'm going to wrestle yet.
Well, now, Dave, I know on social media you got a great presence on Facebook. Why don't you tell everyone where they can find out more about, obviously, not only the Portland Wrestling Expo, but the big match in England? Where can they find you on social media?
Well, yeah, if you go to Facebook, Fidel Sierra, just Fidel Sierra, and I can share some stuff. Whatever I do sell, I'm working on some stuff to put together. Whatever I have, I usually have people to DM me and what they want if they see something that they like. If we put some stuff on eBay and stuff like that. And I've done some stuff with you, Nicholas, and it's been great.
Check out Fidel Sierra on Facebook. And, of course, Top Gun's coming to the Portland Wrestling Expo Saturday, February 22nd at the Holiday Inn Portland Airport. Tickets are going to go on sale next month. We're definitely going to have Top Gun on again here before February gets here. And you may be seeing the Cuban Assassin on the Captain's Corner social media soon enough in another virtual signing. But, Dave, what do you want to say to everyone that's been tuning in, that supported you throughout your 40-plus years?
I just want to say I love all the wrestling fans. Without them, we would be nobody. That's number one. I want to talk about what you're doing in Portland, what's going on there in Portland. It means so much to me to go back to the Pacific Northwest, where all these characters were made thanks to Don Owens and Barry Owens and the whole Pacific Northwest. And the fans there, when they hated me, but when they loved me even better. When I went as Top Gun, it got over like it was on fire. The grappler was the booker. Yes, we're friends. We came up with some good TV. That's all I got to say. We rode together, and when we rode together, we would have a few beers, and we'd come up, and Lenny said, you know what, we need to start writing this stuff down on a piece of paper and Don Owens said, are you guys ever going to run out of ideas? And because Lenny was a booker, but I was sort of like, and I said, as long as we got beer, Don, we ain't going to run out of no ideas. So Lenny is the grappler who's going to be there too. Luke Williams is going to be there. I had many feuds, me and Ricky Santana, with the Bushwhackers here as the Sheep Herders in Championship Wrestling for Florida. But just the honor of getting to go back to Portland Wrestling, where Top Gun was created, where the fans were the best. And I have so many people that have seen Grappler's going to be there, Luke Williams going to be there, asking me, how come you're not going to be here? Well, now they know I'm going to be there. I will be there. Because I did have a lot of people asking me. If you go to Port Wrestling, I on my phone, I keep saying, why aren't you coming here? You haven't been here in so many years and all that. And I just said, well, you never know, what's going to happen. Because I didn't want to spoil it till right now.
Yeah, but Dave was being good about it. Top Gun was being good because he's known for a bit he was going to be on the show. And I want to thank him for doing his best to save this announcement. And I want to make sure we're going to announce it this Tuesday on social media. But everyone, of course, catching the video, listen to the podcast, you get the breaking news. And if you missed what Top Gun, what Dave slid in there, is that him and Lenny used to drink a lot of beer on the way to the town. So you're going to have beer for Dave and Lenny, the grappler, on February 22nd at the Portland Wrestling Expo.
There you go. And I can't wait. Portland, Oregon, baby, get ready because we're going to set it on fire.
One more time. I love it. Thank you so much for being here, Dave.
Thank you all, and it's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Dave.
Bye-bye.
Hey guys, Ray Russell here, curator of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network, inviting you guys to listen to many of the programs here as part of the WrestleCopia brand, including, but not limited to, the Wrestling Memory Grenade, currently covering the 1988 and the WWF project. You can also listen to the Regional Wrestling Podcast, where we talk the territories, whether it's Jamie Ward with Georgia 81, Roman Gomez with the UWF in 1986, or Gene Jackson covering Memphis in 85. 3 projects going on right now over there at Regional Wrestling. You can also listen to the Wrestling Stoop with the legend himself, Bob Roop. Bob goes back in time each and every week, covering not just his career, but countless stories and interactions with hundreds of wrestling names spanning his 2 decades in the business. But that's not all. You can also check out the Puro Wrestling Academy with the professor of Puro Resu, Mr. Dan Ginnity. Dan and I go back in time and cover the history of Japanese professional wrestling in the English language. And you can listen to all of those shows and more, all part of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network, located over at WrestleCopia.com. That's WrestleCopia.com, and anywhere your podcast streaming needs are met, from Apple to Spotify, Pocket Cast, and beyond. And while you're at it, why not subscribe to our social media guys for all the latest goings on here at the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. Plus, I'm constantly adding old school video clips and pictures from throughout wrestling history. You can follow us over on X, formerly Twitter, at Wrestling Grenade. That's at RASSLIN Grenade. Also, follow and like me, Facebook.com/Wrestling Grenade. And why not subscribe to YouTube.com/Wrestling Grenade. And of course, now would be a fantastic time to become a WrestleCopia patron. I'm talking about that $5 all access tier over at patreon.com/WrestleCopia. That address again, patreon.com/WrestleCopia, where you get so many gifts for just $5, including all of my insanely detailed show notes for every episode of The Grenade Show, Regional Wrestling, and the Monday Warfare podcast. You'll also get early access to a lot of the podcasts here on the WrestleCopia brand, where you can listen days and sometimes as much as a week earlier than the rest of the listeners. We also offer remastered versions of the earliest episodes of The Grenade Show covering the 1989 NWA project. Includes enhanced sound quality, plus new content and conversation never heard before. But that's still not all, guys. You also get at least a dozen digital downloads for your viewing and reading pleasure each and every month, plus random bonus video drops, and of course, the Patreon exclusive Watch Along series covering many past WWF and WCW events. And if that's not all, videocasts, also now a part of Patreon. And for those who like all of their podcasts in one nice, neat little pile, the WrestleCopia Patreon also offers a Patreon exclusive Spotify account. You can actually go over to your Spotify with your WrestleCopia Patreon credentials. Instead of listening or downloading directly from Patreon, you can go over to Spotify, listen to all the latest shows, including all of the early releases. And you get all of that and so much more for just $5. No subscription, cancel anytime. Give it a try for a month, guys. I think you'll like the content that I offer, and every penny of it goes right back here into paying the bills. So if you're looking to support that next up-and-coming podcast brand, please consider making it WrestleCopia. Help me pay some of the bills to keep the WrestleCopia Podcast Network and all of the great shows here up and running for the months and the years to come. Well, how awesome was that, Nick? What a great interview, Dave Sierra.
Oh,
Fidel
God.
Sierra, the Cuban assassin, and all the other aliases. What a great time. And I'm looking forward to seeing Top Gun in person.
Well, at Top Gun, of course, one part of Dave's career. Dave had so many unique characters. He was one of those last wrestlers to wrestle in every territory, every country. Just talking to Dave, you're sitting under the learning tree. You can talk for him for hours from Championship Wrestling Florida, hours from Portland Wrestling, hours from New Japan. He had such an amazing career. But we are here to talk Top Gun. Dave will be February 22nd at the Portland Wrestling Expo, join the Grappler and sheepherder Luke Williams.
Well, that's a great start. Looking forward to seeing what else happens here with the Portland Wrestling Expo. But man, Nick, that's enough for me. I mean, it's a territory that deserves the respect and appreciation of their fans. One more time, I'm sure there's a lot of old time fans out there. Can't wait for this. Looking forward to getting to see some of their old favorites. And it's a great honor, I think, that you're doing for that territory, because of all the territories, we hear a lot about Florida, Mid-Atlantic, of course, the New York territory, all the different places in Texas. But a lot of times people overlook Portland. And I'm not sure why, because from Buddy Rose to Roddy Piper, from the Sheepherders to Dutch Savage, everyone in between, including the Destroyer, Assassin, Top Gun. I mean, it's just, there's so much history there, right? And now you get to open a new can of worms on an old story, and I'm looking forward to it.
Well, since we've made the announcement, and I felt the way you feel, Ray, and that Portland and the Pacific Northwest deserve their own convention. And since we made the announcement a few weeks ago about the Portland Wrestling Expo, I've gotten nothing but compliments, nothing but fans wanting to be a part of it, talent wanting to be a part of it, and we're going to have a bunch of announcements coming down the pike. But tickets are going to go on sale Friday, September 20th. So, like I said, we're going to have a few dozen guests. And right now we've got 3 announced, and that's the Grappler, sheepherder Luke Williams, and Top Gun, who will all be part of our Portland Wrestling 100 Years Q&A, which will take place right after the meet and greet at the Holiday Inn Portland Airport.
Oh, very awesome. Very cool. Well, Nick, I think we've schooled him for this week in regards to the Portland Wrestling Expo. I'd love to continue to talk about it, but you've got a lot of other things going on, and I figure before we wrap up, you might want to fill everybody in on some of the other things coming up very soon as part of Captain's Corner.
Well, we've got a big signing that's coming up. Literally, the day is here. We have a signing with Kenta, international superstar Kenta, known as Hideo Itami from WWE, known as Kenta for most of his career, though. And in a couple of weeks, we'll have a virtual signing with Ivelisse Velez, who may be joining us very soon on the WrestleCopia Presents Captain's Corner podcast. And I haven't talked about it much, but November 16th, the Wrestling Classic 5 returns to Springfield, Massachusetts. We've got Jim Ross. We've got the Boogie Woogie Man, Jimmy Valiant, Ron Simmons, JBL. So that's an APA reunion. Deborah McMichael will be announcing another Hall of Famer very soon. A little royalty, if that doesn't give away, a certain king, or the king, as an announcer would say. So the Wrestling Classics, November 16th. That's the New England happening. The Portland Wrestling Expo, February 22nd. We've just announced in the last week that we're doing a private signing with the Nature Boy Flair. Early November is the cutoff for mail-in, so a lot of stuff happening on Captain's Corner. And right now, Ray, you've given a voice, a podcast life to the Captain's Corner brand and the Captain's Corner community. So I got to thank you for that. You're doing a job as, first sailor or co-pilot of the Captain's Corner podcast, right?
I'll take it. Any kind of sidekick works for me. Nick, not just giving everybody information in regards to what you have upcoming. It's probably a good idea, too, that we give everybody your social media information.
Absolutely. Well, Facebook is the number one place for all things Captain's Corner. That's where I do the majority of my posts and the majority of my contacts. So check out Facebook, search Captain's Corner. You'll see a big picture for the Wrestling Classic on November 16th. I am on Instagram as well, at Captain's Corner Wrestling. We do announcements there as well. Sometimes do break news like we did today on the Captain's Corner podcast. So I would say Facebook and Instagram is the reason for the season. And, of course, check us out every couple of weeks here on the WrestleCopia Podcast Network at the Captain's Corner Podcast.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's going to do it here this week, guys. Don't forget to check me out, and all the WrestleCopia programs, all the podcasts over at WrestleCopia.com and all of your favorite podcast streaming platforms. Of course, most recently dropped Dangerous Conversations with Doug Gilbert, the brother of Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert, the son of one Tommy Gilbert. Doug Gilbert already sharing some really fun behind-the-scenes stories about heading into Royal Rumble 96, his time in the Global Wrestling Federation with Eddie Gilbert as the booker, and he is the Dark Patriot. Lots of great stuff. And this week, I do believe it was originally going to be talking about Cowboy Bill Watts, the UWF, when Eddie was there booking, and Doug kind of sneaking in and working there, maybe underage. But instead, we're going to save that little spoiler because I believe we're pivoting due to the passing of Doug's very good friend, Sid Vicious, earlier this week. I do believe this next episode of Dangerous Conversations is going to be all about his buddy Sid.
I can't wait to hear that one. I know Doug, I've had the pleasure to work with him before. I know Doug and Sid were very close. And I can't wait to hear maybe some personal stories that he's got from outside the ring with Sid.
So, guys, again, make sure you check out the Captain's Corner on Facebook. And you got some big things coming to the convention in November. And then, of course, the Portland Wrestling Expo, Nick. So I'm looking forward to all of that. And can't wait to see what you do next, man. It's Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair, Jim Ross, by God. And we can't announce it yet. But with Deborah McMichael there, we might hear someone yell, "Puppies!" Who knows?
We very well may. And there may be a photo op available, too, at the Wrestling Classic of those two people together.
Oh, very cool. I love it. All right, I think that's it for this week, guys. We're going to wrap things up. We'll be back soon. Who knows who the special guest will be next time out, but we will be back in just a couple weeks' time. Hang tight until then. Thank you once again, Nick.
Thank you, Ray. Cheers to the working man.